September the 30th is International Podcast Day, so I thought I would give you some podcast recommendations. Last year, as part of my Festivity 365 challenge, I gave some general podcast recommendations of my favourite podcasts. This time, I'm going specific. This year, I'm giving you Doctor Who recommendations. And those recommendations are going to come in two types. The first type is going to be podcasts which aren't the podcasts themselves aren't Doctor Who related, but they've done episodes on Doctor Who. And then I shall give you a few wholly Doctor Who related podcasts to check out as well. This is by no means an exhaustive list. I don't have the time for that, and I haven't even contemplated listening to. I don't have the time to listen to as many podcasts as I know there are good ones out there. I have heard of many other good podcast recommendations that I won't be including here because I just haven't had the time to listen to them. So that's where you come in. You guys can put your recommendations in the comments below for podcasts that I haven't included here. So let's share our podcast suggestions, shall we? Let's start with the ones where the podcast series themselves aren't Doctor Who related, but they've done Doctor Who episodes. And the first of these I'm going to mention is a podcast called Imaginary Worlds. Their tagline is a show about how we create them and why we suspend our disbelief. It's a podcast, a bi-weekly podcast all about sci-fi and fantasy and the fictional worlds that they create and inhabit. Now, right back at the beginning of 2018, over January and February, they did 3 back-to-back episodes on Doctor Who, so I thoroughly recommend you go check those out, because this is an amazing podcast. If you like your sci-fi and you like your fantasy in general, you will like this podcast. It delves into all sorts of aspects about creating imaginary worlds, and the 3 episodes that they did on Doctor Who, the first one was called Doctor Who, ? The second one was called Inside the TARDIS. Is that right? Sorry, no. The second one was called Travelling in the TARDIS, and the third one was called Behind the Daleks. So the third one is very Dalek focused, if you want that one. It's all about what it's like travelling as a companion in the second one, and the first one is a general overview of the fandom and being a fan of Doctor Who. So go check that out. It's called Imaginary Worlds. I'd very much recommend it. The second one in this section I'm going to recommend is one called Plumbing the Death Star, which is a hilarious podcast. If you haven't checked it out already, they basically take a random question about a sci-fi franchise every week, and then they debate it for the duration of the episode. And there's all sorts of things on there, like I struggle to think now, but like what's the best fictional world to live in is one of the ones that they've had before. The one Doctor Who one I could find that was specifically about Doctor Who, they mentioned Doctor Who in a few different podcasts as answers, but the one that is focused on Doctor Who is when they pose the question, what are the implications of regeneration? So that episode, let me check, went out on the 3rd January 2016 if you want to hunt that back out through their back catalogue. And finally in this section, I'd recommend The Weekly Planet. This is an Australian duo. Again, it's a very humour-based podcast about sci-fi and fantasy and other geeky stuff, computer games occasionally as well. And they had just sort of a inane chat about subjects. Doctor Who has come up in several of theirs, but 23rd of November 2014 is one episode where they talked about the then current series of Doctor Who that was running, so you might want to check that out. But they do have other ones where they've mentioned Doctor Who in their collection as well. They also have a really good YouTube channel, so check that out as well. Now, moving on to actual Doctor Who focused podcasts where the focus is all on Doctor Who. I'm only going to do 3 of these for time reasons, and like I said, because I haven't checked out every Doctor Who podcast. So these are by no means saying these are the best. These are just ones that I happen to have listened to and have liked. The first of my recommendations is the Big Blue Box podcast. This is hosted by Adam, otherwise known as the Geek's Handbag, and Gary, and they have mostly a review focus. They review stuff, and all their most of their titles of their episodes are the thing that they're going to review, and so it tells you what they're going to review. And they will review stuff from the mainline Doctor Who. They'll review stuff from the spin-offs, all sorts of stuff. So that's a good one to check out. Next one I'm going to recommend is the Blog to Who cast. This is a spin-off of the popular Blog to Who website, and a mix of reviews, chat, bit of news, a whole lot of stuff in there. It's another good one. I will hold my hand up and say slight bias that I have written for the Blog to Who website, so that slight bias there, I suppose, but that it's one that I've checked out and I've liked the podcast, so another recommendation for you. And the final one in this section is going to be the Time Ladies podcast. I had to check the name of it. Time Ladies Talk is what it's called. This one, they do have lots of general chat. They talk about the latest news and stuff, but they also have a particular topic that relates to their niche of the website. This is a spin-off of the Time Ladies website, obviously. And so far they've only had 3 episodes so far, so it's still very much a new podcast. But I think they found their footing quite nicely and marked out a sort of niche territory of exploring a question or a topic about the subject of Doctor Who related to women in Doctor Who. So far their topics have been in the pilot episode was companions who deserved more. Then they were discussing the dilemma of the female villain, and in the latest episode, were female companions better in the classic series? No, not just in the classic series, in the 60s. So go check out all those 3 podcasts check out a new one if you haven't heard of one of those before on International Podcast Day. And I'll be back for more Who Week stuff leading up to the new series tomorrow. Tomorrow, I got something about the Curse of the Fatal Death. So tune in for that. See you then. Bye.